Imagine America before the arrival of Europeans. No skyscrapers, no highways, no industrial noise. Instead, endless forests, prairies, and mountains, home to hundreds of tribes. They trade with one another, hunt bison, tell stories by the fire, and worship the spirits of nature. To them, the land is sacred, and rivers, mountains, and forests are living beings with whom they must live in harmony. And then they arrive, the first ships from Europe, seemingly bringing only news from a faraway world. But along with that news, they bring diseases, weapons, and greed. At first, it seems like an exchange. Native Americans teach the newcomers how to survive in the wild, how to plant corn, hunt, and navigate these uncharted lands. But within just a few decades, the relationship changes. The Europeans want more land, more resources, more power. And so begins what historians would later call the greatest tragedy of the indigenous peoples of North America. From the first armed clashes in the 1600s to the total annihilation of entire tribes in the 1800s, it was a war no one officially declared, but one that was waged without mercy. Why? Was it only about land and gold? Or was there something deeper? An ideology that justified genocide? This is just the beginning of our investigation. In the next parts, we'll uncover how the United States built its nation on the blood of those who were here long before their arrival. The year is 1622. Only a few years have passed since the founding of Jamestown, the first permanent English settlement in North America. Relations between the settlers and the Powhatan Confederacy are tense, but not yet hopeless. Then it happens. On March 22nd, Native warriors launch a coordinated attack, killing over 300 colonists. To the settlers, this is proof that the natives are savages who must be eliminated. But to the Powhatan people, it's an act of survival, a desperate move against foreigners who take more land every year and destroy the balance of nature. The English respond with overwhelming force. Entire villages are burned. Fields are destroyed to starve the tribes. And here's the chilling part. These attacks are not seen as crimes. They are justified by the settlers as divine will. The Bible, they say, grants them this land. This belief that God intended for Europeans to rule over these territories becomes one of the most dangerous ideologies in history. It transforms greed into a holy mission and slaughter into progress. From this moment forward, the pattern is set. Attack, retaliate, displace, and repeat. Each time pushing Native Americans further from their lands, erasing not only their homes but their culture. But the worst is yet to come. In the next part, we'll uncover the infamous Pequot Massacre, an event so brutal it shocked even some of the settlers themselves. It's the year 1637. Tensions between English settlers, their native allies, and the powerful Pequot tribe have reached a boiling point. Trade disputes, accusations of murder, and relentless territorial expansion have turned mistrust into open war. On a cold May night, the English and their native allies surround the Pequot village at Mystic, Connecticut. Inside, families sleep peacefully, unaware of the horror about to unfold. Before dawn, the attack begins. Warriors, women, and children scramble in panic as the village is set ablaze. Those who flee the flames are cut down with swords and muskets. The air is thick with smoke, screams, and the sound of gunfire. By the time the sun rises, more than 500 Pequot men, women, and children lie dead. It isn't just a battle, it's an extermination. And here's the chilling twist. The settlers call it a victory of God's providence. Governor John Winthrop of the Massachusetts Bay Colony even writes in his journal that this slaughter was a divine blessing, proof that the Puritans were fulfilling their sacred mission. This moment marks a turning point. Mass killings of Native Americans become not the exception, but the accepted strategy. Villages are no longer just defeated, they are erased. And as the colonies grow, so does their hunger for land. The stage is now set for one of the bloodiest chapters in North American history, King Philip's War, where entire tribes will be nearly wiped from existence. The year is 1675. Metacom, known to the English as King Philip, is the son of Massasoit, the very chief who once helped the Pilgrims survive their first winters. But the fragile peace between the Wampanoag people and the colonists is gone. Broken treaties, stolen lands, and constant humiliation have pushed Metacom to his breaking point. He knows there's only one way to protect his people: war. The first shots are fired in a small frontier settlement. What follows is one of the deadliest conflicts in American history, yet few today even know it happened. Wampanoag warriors, joined by the Nipmuc and Narragansett tribes, strike with speed and precision. Towns burn, colonists flee in terror. Entire regions become uninhabitable. But the colonists respond with equal ferocity. They burn native villages to the ground, slaughtering not just warriors but women, children, and the elderly. Captured leaders are executed, their heads placed on pikes for all to see. When Metacom is finally killed, his body is mutilated. His head is displayed in Plymouth for over 20 years, a gruesome trophy meant to warn any who might resist. The result? Over 5,000 Native Americans are dead, nearly half the indigenous population of New England. Entire tribes vanish from the land they had lived on for thousands of years. For the colonists, the war is a triumph. For the Native Americans, it's an apocalypse. And yet, this is only the beginning. The violence will spread westward, growing more systematic, more calculated, and more ruthless with each passing decade. It's the 1830s. America is growing, and the government has its eyes set on the fertile lands of the Southeast, home to the Cherokee, Creek, Chickasaw, Choctaw, and Seminole nations. These tribes aren't savages in the way the politicians claim. They have farms, schools, written languages, even their own newspapers. They've adopted many European customs, hoping coexistence will ensure their survival. It won't. President Andrew Jackson signs the Indian Removal Act of 1830, granting the government the power to force tribes off their ancestral lands. The official reason? To open land for American settlers. The real cost? Human lives on a massive scale. Despite winning a Supreme Court case that recognizes their sovereignty, the Cherokee are still targeted. Soldiers round up families at gunpoint, driving them into overcrowded stockades. There is no mercy. The sick, the elderly, the young, all are forced to march west. This forced relocation becomes known as the Trail of Tears. Over 1,200 miles, freezing winters, scorching summers, little food, diseases like dysentery and cholera rip through the marchers. By the time it's over, 1 in 4 Cherokee is dead. The Choctaw lose thousands. The Creek, Chickasaw, and Seminole suffer the same fate. Mass graves mark the route, but there are no monuments, no honor, just silence. For the U.S. government, it's a successful policy. For Native Americans, it's genocide under the banner of progress. And yet, there's an even darker truth. Some historians argue that the Trail of Tears wasn't just about land. It was about erasing a people, their culture, and their history from the American story entirely. By the mid-1800s, the Great Plains are home to millions of buffalo, the lifeblood of the Plains tribes like the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Comanche. Buffalo provide food, clothing, tools, and shelter. Without them, survival is nearly impossible. The U.S. government knows this, and they turn it into a weapon. Army officers openly admit the strategy. Kill every buffalo you can. Every buffalo dead is an Indian gone. This isn't random hunting. It's targeted extermination. Railroads cut through the heart of the plains, and passengers are encouraged to shoot buffalo from train windows for sport. Hunters, funded and protected by the government, kill thousands a day. The plains, once alive with massive herds, become a graveyard of bleached bones. In less than 20 years, the buffalo population crashes from over 30 million to barely 1,000. With their primary food source gone, tribes face starvation. Many are forced onto reservations, relying on meager government rations, a deliberate dependency designed to break their spirit and resistance. But it's not just about killing the buffalo. It's about killing a way of life, destroying the connection between the tribes and their land, erasing centuries of culture in one calculated move. And all of this is sold to the public as progress, clearing the way for ranchers, settlers, and railroads. Yet, even as the buffalo vanish, a new kind of war begins. One fought not with rifles, but with education, religion, and identity itself. By the late 19th century, the U.S. government changes its tactics. The military campaigns have taken land. The buffalo slaughter has destroyed food sources. Now, the goal is cultural annihilation. The new battlefield is the mind. In 1879, Captain Richard Henry Pratt opens the first major Indian boarding school in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. His mission statement is chilling: kill the Indian, save the man. In other words, erase every trace of native culture and replace it with white American values. Children are taken from their families, often by force, and shipped hundreds of miles away. Their hair is cut short, their traditional clothes burned, their languages banned. Speaking their mother tongue can lead to beatings, days in solitary confinement, or worse. They're given new names, English names, taught that their old ways are savage and shameful, forced to pray in Christian churches, march in military drills, and work as unpaid labor for character building. The trauma runs deep. Many children never return home. Some die of disease, malnutrition, or abuse and are buried in unmarked graves. Graves still being uncovered today. This isn't just assimilation. It's a slow, deliberate erasure of identity, generation by generation. And while the government claims it's for the betterment of native people, the truth is darker. A culture destroyed is a people easier to control. But resistance doesn't die. Even under the weight of oppression, the fire of survival burns in the hearts of the tribes, waiting for the moment to rise again. By the 1880s, the U.S. government has already taken vast swaths of native land. But there's still one problem. Reservations keep native nations together, and unity means resistance. So in 1887, Congress passes the Dawes Act, a law disguised as help for Native Americans. It promises land ownership to individual Native families, breaking up the communal tribal land system. To the public, it's sold as a path to civilization and prosperity. But in reality, it's a calculated trap. Instead of holding land together as a tribe, plots are divided and assigned to individuals, usually 160 acres each. Once the allotment process is done, all remaining surplus land, often the majority, is sold to white settlers, railroads, and speculators. Native people, unfamiliar with Western property laws, are often cheated out of their allotments or forced to sell them for pennies. The result? In just a few decades, Native nations lose 2/3 of the land they still held after centuries of warfare. Tens of millions of acres vanish into private hands. And the damage isn't just physical, it's cultural. Communal life, the foundation of many Native societies, is shattered. The land that once sustained generations is carved into pieces, fenced, and sold off. The Dawes Act was not about assimilation. It was about legalizing theft under the cover of progress. By the dawn of the 20th century, the conquest is nearly complete. The native population has plummeted. Their land is gone. Their culture is under siege. But history has a way of circling back. And the wounds left by this land grab still shape America today. By the early 1900s, most Americans think the Indian Wars are over. But the truth? The battles just changed shape. Native nations may no longer fight with bows, arrows, or rifles, but they fight in courtrooms, in protests, and in the quiet defiance of keeping traditions alive. Throughout the 20th century, the U.S. government continues to chip away at native rights, relocating tribes to urban areas, building dams that flood sacred lands, and breaking treaties that were already ignored for decades. Yet, resistance never dies. From the 1960s to the 1970s, a new wave of native activism rises. Groups like the American Indian Movement, AIM, demand justice, protesting police brutality, fighting for treaty rights, and reclaiming stolen land. In 1973, AIM stages the famous Wounded Knee occupation, returning to the very site of the 1890 massacre. Armed with rifles and unshakable will, they hold the town for 71 days, facing off against federal agents in a tense standoff. Across the country, tribes win legal battles to restore fishing rights, protect burial sites, and reclaim small pieces of their ancestral homelands. The wars of the past may have been fought with bullets, but these new wars are fought with words, laws, and unbreakable spirit. Still, the shadow of history is long. For every victory, there's the haunting question: can a nation ever truly heal after centuries of betrayal and bloodshed? Most Americans grow up learning a sanitized version of history: cowboys and Indians, pioneers and progress, a nation built from coast to coast. But beneath the myth lies a truth that refuses to disappear. The Indian Wars were not just battles of the past. They shaped the very borders, laws, and wealth of the United States. The cities, highways, and farmlands we see today, many stand on stolen land, taken by force or fraud. Native communities still face the consequences: higher poverty rates, loss of language, and struggles over sovereignty. The reservations, often placed on land deemed worthless by settlers, hide untapped resources worth billions: oil, uranium, timber, resources that corporations and governments still fight to control. And yet, the culture survives. Despite centuries of erasure, native languages are being revived, ceremonies are being practiced again, and the truth of history is finally being told. Not from the perspective of the conquerors, but from the voices of those who endured. This is the legacy of America's bloody birth, a reminder that the past is never really gone, and that healing requires more than monuments or apologies. Because if history teaches us anything,